Welcome to the hidden corners where truth and terror collide. Discover a realm where the lines between the living and the supernatural blur as you embark on a journey to the paranormal and visit the mysterious hidden corners of your mind.
Part 19, Werewolves in the Snow, Arctic, Finland. The impact of the car sliding off the road into a snowbank was enough to jolt everyone awake. The sudden stop sent Rebecca sliding off her seat into the back of the seat in front of her. She let out a yip and a bark. The engine sputtered and fell silent as Catherine let out a gasp, and Usko quickly asked if everyone was all right. The car had just avoided hitting a tree, but was deeply buried in a snowbank. Angry at himself for falling asleep at the wheel, Usko attempted to open his car door and found it wouldn't budge. Feeling foolish, he asked Catherine to try hers. It would not open either. Useless in her little wolf form, Rebecca had curled back into her ball in the back seat and was whimpering. Usko climbed over the seat and tried the back door. It opened just enough to allow him to reach out and begin scooping snow away with his hands. See, the front end of the car was buried deep into the snowbank, but the rear was sticking out, free of the snow. If he could get the back door open all the way, he could get out, open the trunk of the car where he'd put the small emergency snow shovel his cousin had insisted that they take along. He was grateful now for his cousin's forethought. After 30 minutes of digging out, Usko had the door opened enough that Rebecca could slide through. With her small wolf paws, she dug at the snow, sending a stream of snow behind her, till she had cleared the path for the door to open completely. Usko climbed out and got the shovel from the trunk, and he began unburying the front passenger side as Rebecca continued plowing through the snow on the driver's side of the car. Usko watched the little wolf make quick work of the snow. She was happy in her wolf form, he thought to himself. He wondered if the serum she'd been given would eventually make her forget she was once a human girl, just like her brother. Spencer had already demonstrated signs of forgetting his human qualities. He was nearly 100% wolf. He wondered if Luther had intended that to happen or if it was an anomaly that occurred just accidentally. Catherine tried her cell phone again. There was no reception. She was anxious to contact her brother and let him know that she was okay. She knew that he was searching for her. He was always there when she needed him, just a phone call away. He must be sick with worry, she thought to herself. Now she was worried about him too. She didn't want to think what might have happened if the men who kidnapped her had also taken Miguel and her brother. The frustration of not getting a hold of him was getting to her. She had to do something. She pulled on her coat and gloves, and she got out of the car to help shovel snow. Usko was still clearing her side of the car with the small emergency shovel he was using. Rebecca was still tunneling through the other side of the car. Catherine used her gloved hands to dig at the snow over and around the windshield of the car. It was bitter cold. The sun was just beginning to warm the frozen trees. It appeared as if steam was coming from them. It was just a beautiful sight to behold. She gathered up a ball of snow and she threw it at Usko, hitting him in the back of the head. He laughed and he threw one at her. Soon they were tossing snowballs at each other, and Rebecca was leaping around them, barking and burying her head down into the snow, attempting to catch the snowballs with her teeth. It felt good to laugh, Catherine thought, as she closed her eyes and tilted her head back, breathing in the crispy winter air. She felt Usko's arms around her and relaxed into his hug. "Come on," he said. "Let's see if the car will start." On the third try, the engine roared to life and they backed the car out of the snow. Within minutes, they were back on the road again, heading towards the Arctic Ocean Highway, which connects the Finnish Lapland, the Arctic Ocean. The president of Finland, Sauli Niinisto, and his wife Jenny loved their dogs. Their pet Boston Terrier, Lenu, was a celebrity among the people of their country, often appearing in the president's lap during official appearances. The dog received international attention when he was briefly featured on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, in which cartoon internet images were made of him. The dog took social media by a storm and became a national icon. The little dog even has a pastry named after him. Well, the beloved dog passed away in 2021 of brain cancer. Now the president has a new dog that has taken over the limelight. Osku was a little black and white male Tenterfield Terrier. To say that the president had a soft spot in his heart for dogs would be true, but wolves, they were another matter altogether. The topic was a controversial one. Finland's 5.5 million residents share the country with an estimated 235 wolves. And that's too many, says rural Finns whose livestock and hunting dogs were being killed. Now wolves are killed in management hunts, with as many as 50 or 60 wolves killed annually. And yet wolves remain a protected, endangered species. A candlelight vigil for slaughtered wolves was held in Helsinki only last month. And once that hit social media, hunts were disrupted by fireworks, vandalized trail cameras, and a hunting shelter was burned to the ground. Russian hunters have been offered a bounty to kill wolves, tipped off by other angry hunters as they are chased across the border into Russia. Some parents are afraid wolves will attack their children. One remote community reportedly hired an expensive wolf taxi to transport the children from their front doors to school and back, so the children wouldn't have to wait at remote bus stops, fearing they would be prey to the wolves in the vicinity. It's become a territorial dispute, one parent claimed. Now, wolves were driven to virtual extinction in Finland after children were attacked at the end of the last century. A lot of things could kill you in 19th century Finland, but perhaps one of the nastiest ways to go was to be attacked by a wolf. The story of a pair of rogue wolves that killed 35 children over an 18-month period is still widely repeated. The fear of wolves attacking kids playing in their yard exists today, even though these historic attacks happened in an era when children often led cattle into the forest to graze and when there was no moose for the wolves to eat. It's an evolving battle between wolf haters and wolf lovers, doing battle online, trading threats, insults, wild conspiracies about illegal poaching, or zoos deliberately releasing wolves. It was all just a bunch of drama in Niinisto's opinion. As president of his country, he was expected to make a compromise that would appease both sides of the debate. Niinisto had seen much drama in his personal and political life. In 1995, his wife of more than 20 years was killed in a car accident. Then, on the 26th of December of 2004, Niinisto was vacationing in Indonesia when a major earthquake with a magnitude of 9.1 on the Richter scale struck off the west coast of northern Sumatra. Known as the Sumatra-Andaman earthquake, it caused a massive tsunami with waves up to 100 foot high, devastating communities along the coasts of the Indian Ocean, killing more than 250,000 people in 14 countries, in one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. Niinisto and his younger son survived the tsunami by climbing a telephone pole. Niinisto wasn't sure he believed the so-called Russian werewolf experiment. He was anxious to see these half-man, half-wolf creatures firsthand. He had known Sasha since she was a young girl. He had no reason to doubt her. But this idea of werewolf soldiers sounded like another Russian fairy tale. It was no surprise that the experiment was top secret. If it was true, the threat to national security was enormous. If Russia began sending wolves across the border, wolves carrying and able to use guns, the idea it was just too absurd, Niinisto thought. The border to Russia was mostly forest and small rural communities. It would be easy for an army of wolves to cross the border, regardless of how many wolf hunters there were. Ninisto sat in his living room discussing the topic with his wife. I have to see it to believe it, he told her. Can you imagine? He said out loud to the little dog sitting in his lap as he scratched the dog's ears, as Osco, the little terrier, licked the president's hands. Jack was getting restless sitting in the living room of the ski condo. Sasha had stepped out to get a takeout pizza from the little resort restaurant, and he tried Kat's number again. Why isn't she answering, he asked, shaking his head in frustration. He dialed Miguel's number. Miguel answered on the first ring. What's happening, Jack, he asked. Absolutely nothing, Jack answered. She hasn't called me back. I've tried her several times. I've left messages. I don't know where she is or what happened to her. This is driving me crazy. We can't go looking for her. We have no idea which direction to search. What are we going to do? Miguel asked. Well, there's nothing we can do but wait it out. Sasha is reaching out to all of her connections. They seem to have fallen off the radar for the time being. She's got people looking for this guy who took them. They're checking his family members, his former employers, friends. He's got to turn up somewhere. Are you absolutely sure that you can trust this Sasha woman? Miguel asked. I don't have any reason not to, Jack explained. She seems very sincere. I really believe she's trying her best. Well, just be careful, Jack. Watch your back. You never really know who you can trust. And let me know if and when you hear anything. I will, Jack replied, as the door opened and Sasha walked into the room carrying a pizza and a bottle of wine, shaking the snow off her hair. My phone's been ringing. My hands were full, so I couldn't answer it. It's probably my brother. Sasha handed the pizza and wine to Jack and dug in her purse for her phone as it began to ring again. Peter, what have you found out? She removed her coat and scarf with one hand while she held the phone up to her ear with the other. Well, that's fantastic news. We'll get packed and ready as soon as you have the location. She ended the call and she turned to Jack. They've found them. They are in a car driving towards the border, crossing into Finland. The landscape was white as far as the eye could see. Catherine gazed out the window. It's so beautiful here, and frozen. We are getting very close to my mother's village. She'll be very excited to meet you. Rebecca had turned back into her human girl form and was dressed once again in her reindeer hide clothing Usko had given her to wear. We'll stay there for the night. We'll get our supplies ready. Then we leave tomorrow for the border to Finland. I've got to get you across before anyone discovers where we are, Usko explained. Will we take sledges driven by reindeer? Rebecca asked. Usko laughed. Well, the car is more practical, but it depends if the border crossing is blocked. We may have to take a sledge when we reach our village. We'll decide what method is best for crossing. But there is a good chance that we'll have to cross with the reindeer herds. It would probably be best if we could cross through the forests as wolves. But since Catherine can't change yet, that method is out. Come on, Catherine, you can try, Rebecca whined. What? I don't even know how to begin. I don't think I can. You haven't even tried. You've got the blood, Catherine. You should be able to just change automatically. Rebecca persisted, but it didn't do any good. You've got to believe you can do it. It's easy for me. I just think about the change, and it happens, just like snapping my fingers. Well, doesn't it hurt? Catherine asked. Not really. I mean, I feel my bones popping, and it's kind of like cracking my knuckles. I feel my back start to arch, and then I feel it in my hips and my shoulders. The weirdest part is when my jaw starts to unhinge. That's a little bit painful, but it happens so fast I've gotten used to it. The hardest part is remembering to take my clothes off first. Or put them back on, Catherine laughed. Jack and Sasha packed up the few belongings they had brought into the condo, brushed the snow off the car in preparation for leaving. It would be a long drive to the Arctic Ocean Highway and the border of Lapland, Finland. Did your brother tell you how they found out what car they're driving? And do you think anyone else has found them out? Well, I don't think so, Sasha replied. Not yet, anyway. Peter talked to Usko's cousin, a guy named Utan. He told Utan to leave with his family, gave them an address where they will be safe, in case the Russian military finds out about them. It was Utan who told us about the rental car and where they were headed. It took some persuasion to get him to talk. Oh? What kind of persuasion? Jack raised an eyebrow and glanced at Sasha. Not what you're thinking. He just had to show proof he is with the Partners for Peace NATO project and that we are interested in their safety as he is. Well, I hope that's true, he muttered under his breath. Miguel had placed doubt in his mind. Was he being foolish to trust this woman he barely knew? He thought back on every conversation and everything that had occurred since he met Sasha. She had withheld information about who she was from the very beginning. Was she still lying to him? He thought it better not to say anything. He wasn't sure he'd know if she were lying or not anyway. All that really mattered was finding Kat, he decided. If she was luring them both into a trap, well, he'd just have to deal with that when the time came. There was not much else he could do but trust her, at least for now. Miguel was pacing the floor. Jack had called to let them know they were leaving for Finland. Finland? Where the hell is that anyway? He asked Julian. See, he'd never studied geography in school. Well, he knew it was a country, along with Iceland, Greenland, Switzerland, Sweden. They were all the same to him, somewhere cold. He went to the library shelf to look for his old atlas. A small paperback book fell off the shelf when he reached for the oversized Rand McNally Atlas of the World. He stooped over to pick it up. It was a small, thin volume he didn't remember ever seeing before. The title read, Werewolves of the World. Now, where did this come from, he wondered. It was written in English, which surprised him because most of his books were, of course, in Spanish. He flipped through the pages and his eyes landed on a page with the heading Viron Susi, the Werewolves of Finland. He sat down in a big winged armchair and he read the following. In Finland, it's believed that a person transforms into a werewolf involuntarily and that they are changed by unknowingly doing something to make them do so. In some Finnish cases, it's believed that a witch can place a curse on someone that will turn them into Viron Susi. Once changed, the werewolf is then forced to hide around houses and in the town until they see someone they know. Should the person recognize them in their Viron Susi form, it is possible for this person to break the curse, allow the werewolf to be changed back into a man or woman once again, for good. Until that time, the werewolf would be forced to eat the cattle in the area, but they would rarely feast on humans. After being recognized, the person could call the werewolf by their Christian name or offer them some bread. This was thought to break the curse of being a Viron Susi. It was still thought, however, that the person could still be cursed to live with their werewolf tail for the rest of their lives, even after being changed back into a man. It's even thought that in some places of Finland today, houses are still equipped with benches known as wolf sauna benches. These benches are for sitting, but they have holes cut out in them for the tails to rest. Miguel chuckled. He'd have to build one of these for Julian and Juanita as a wedding gift, just for fun. He continued to read. In Finnish legend, cunning folk can transform themselves voluntarily into wolves or other animals if they wish to possess temporarily the animal's useful abilities. These stories link to shamanistic traditions of northern areas. But the involuntary transformation is usually a punishment, and sometimes parallel with prison or expulsion. A witch or a beggar who is not invited to a wedding turns the whole party into wolves. Or a cunning man who is asked to punish a thief turns him into a wolf, usually for a predetermined period of time. Back in his human shape, the thief is usually left with the stub of a tail, a stigma referring to his former deeds. Rubbish, Miguel muttered. Jack could tell them a thing or two about being a werewolf. He put the book back on the shelf. He'd read more later. For now, he was interested in figuring out where Finland was and why they were heading there. He was thinking about booking a flight. It was the polar night in the village of Murmansk. Every year, from December the 2nd until January the 11th, the Russian city near the northernmost border of Finland endures the darkness of the polar night. Northern lights flash across the sky, and even during midday, it's pretty dark. Now, in the 1990s, Russian scientists deployed a giant mirror in space to test the feasibility of bouncing sunlight back down to Earth to eliminate Arctic towns like Murmansk. Well, the project was quickly abandoned. Usko's family waited for them to arrive at the Lapland Biosphere Nature Reserve, where reindeer, as well as a large variety of other animals, they roam freely within its protective borders. Far from their own reindeer herds, they decided it was safer to meet Usko here, closer to the border, rather than risking the visit to the tundra where they grazed their reindeer during the winter months. Strangers disguised as tourists had descended upon the reindeer herders in the last few days, and it was decided amongst the tribal elders and the northernmost point of the border would be the safest location for them to cross. They would travel from Murmansk, cross into Norway, and drop down into Finland, traveling with their distant cousins, the Sami reindeer herders. Famous for its Lapland pine and Siberian fir trees, which are between 400 and 600 years old, the Murmansk region is also a place of mystery and the unknown, such as the famous Sedozero Lake, called the Pearl of the Kola North. It is surrounded by dark gray and green rocks and is connected to Lovozero Lake by a stone path. The Sami people believe the lake is sacred. Every year they gather by the mysterious carved stone idols on the shore of the lake to worship, make sacrifices to their gods. Abnormal phenomena is common here. Teams of UFO and cryptozoologists regularly undertake expeditions to this area. During the winter months, tourists flock to Murmansk to view the northern lights and attend the annual Sami festivals. It would be easy for Usko, Catherine, and Rebecca to pose as tourists as they traveled through town. It was decided that Usko's mother and two siblings would travel with them as a family of herders. Catherine and Rebecca posing as tourists who had booked a tour with the Sami. Upon reaching Murmansk, Catherine's phone finally had cell service again. There were several messages from Jack. "Cat, where are you? Are you okay? Call me." But the last message was the best one of all. "Cat, we're on our way. Once you've safely landed in Boston, call me from the diner." She smiled. It was a game they used to play. Boston was the code word for "I know where you're going, but I won't tell Mom." The roads had a thick layer of ice under the snow, but Sasha, she was an experienced driver. Still, it was unnerving to let her do all the driving, Jack thought to himself. They were out of cell range once they had left the ski resort. "Don't worry, Jack. We'll call Peter from the next town and see if he's picked up their location yet. There's a lot of places to cross the border, and we won't know exactly where they've crossed until I hear from Peter. But we'll reach them." Jack was happy he had remembered the game they used to play as teenagers. He was pretty sure Kat would pick up the reference to Boston right away. If he was sneaking out to see a girlfriend, or later when Kat was sneaking out to see a boy, they'd always let each other know their whereabouts and hide it from their parents. He could remember the frustrated look in his mom's eyes when she'd ask where Kat was and he'd reply, "Boston." She never could get the real answer out of him, but she knew that Jack would be watching out for his sister, and the same went for Kat, always looking out for her brother. "What do we do once we get to Finland? I wonder if Kat will ever be safe anywhere. If they could get to her in Mexico, what will stop them from getting her anywhere else she might hide? They've got spies and agents in every country. How are we going to keep her safe no matter what country we hide in?" "Well, that's a good question," Sasha replied. "She's going to have to assume a new identity, change her name, her hair, maybe even her skin and eye color. With contacts and a tan or whatever. Think about it. With Luther dead and all the vials destroyed, the project will be abandoned unless they can find Catherine. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen." Jack sighed. It was time to sell the ranch. He didn't see himself going back to Montana anytime soon.